morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice of radio, so today we're going to be looking at the fourth and final GX from the upcoming Dragonstorm expansion in Japan. It is Kingdra-GX, ladies and gentlemen. This is a weird one, but it's got some pretty good attacks, and anytime we got a Pokemon that's attacking for single energy attacks, you know there's something to look at there. Now, the good news is it is starting life as a water Pokemon, which means it gets two of the best support cards in the game. Brooklet Hill to search out those basics and put them straight onto the bench, and Aqua Patch to attach energy from the discard straight to your Kingdra. So in that respect, ladies and gentlemen, Kingdra's looking quite nice. And of course, being a water Pokemon means you will be hitting for weakness against pesky things like Volcanion, but do remember that these fire decks tend to also play Ho-Oh, which would not be hit for weakness. Now, you do have 230 HP, which is the same as Gardevoir, and honestly, it's a little bit low. 230 HP is about the lowest you would generally get here for a Pokemon GX that is a Stage 2, which is a bit of a pain. Retreat cost of 2 is the worst in the game, especially given that all of Kingdra's attacks are for a single energy, and the weakness to Grass is alright, but not amazing. It means you will be very easily KO'd by a Golisopod, as long as it became active this turn, and Tapu Bulu without having to discard the energy, which is a little bit of a pain, especially as Golisopod is getting better and better at the moment. And as always, being a Stage 2 is a bit of a pain, because it means that you have to evolve up. It can hurt the speed of your deck, which is a bit of a pain. But we got 3 single energy attacks here, and they have been translated by the lovely Autobot Tesla, so hopefully we can find something that we like. Now, the first attack here may well be the best. It does 10 damage, plus an additional 50 for extra water energy attached to Kingdra. Now, we've seen this kind of attack before, but generally it tends to start higher but go up in lower increments. So take something like a Palkia, for instance. 60 damage plus 20 damage for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. Interestingly enough, the exact same attack that Quagsire from Dragonstorm has. The thing is, it adds up on Kingdra much more quickly. So let's say you've got 1 energy on a Kingdra, and let's assume it's a water energy. Now, because it's for colourless energy, you could use double colourless here, but you wouldn't be adding any energy here, which is a bit of a pain, so let's ignore that for the time being. If you've got 1 water energy on here, you do 60 damage. 60 for 1 is pretty good, especially with no downside. Flat 60 for 1 is pretty good. I mean, we've seen Pokemon like Dugtrio, for instance, doing 60 for 1, but doing 10 damage to all of your bench. Or things like Charizard GX, for instance, that does 70 for 3, 60 for 1's pretty good. You add a second energy, you're doing 110. 110 for 2 energy is really, really quite nice indeed. Like I said, something like Tapu Bulu does 120. For 3 energy. Something like a Golisopod does 120 for 1 energy, but you've got to have become active this turn, and this is kind of my point here. For just I've got 2 energy on there, no downside, no I've got to work for it, this is a really nice attack that does a good amount of damage. But you get 3 energy on there, and you're doing 160. Now, we've got Pokemon that do 160 for free energy. We've got Raichu GX that does 160 for free energy, if you don't mind doing 30 damage to yourself. And we've got Turtonator GX that does 160 for free energy, if you don't mind discarding 2 of them. Whereas with Kingdra here, you're just doing a flat 160. And this is a great number to hit. You add a Choice Band on there, and then you're doing 190, so there's a KO on Buzzwole straight away. You could even add a Professor Kukui here and do 210, get a KO on a Zoroark GX, for instance. And I'm here sitting talking about doing 160 for free energy, which as a general rule is about the most you can realistically expect. But there is every possibility here that you'll be able to get more energy on here. which means you'll actually be able to do more than just your general flat 160 for free energy, which in itself is good. But the thing that I really like about this, there's no downside. Generally, when we're looking at doing these kind of numbers, we're either using more energy, or there's a downside, or there's some other requirement that we've got to hit. Here, you just do the damage and you're done, and you can always just keep increasing it. Now, you're not going to be able to put a huge amount of energy on it every single turn, but you've got Aqua Patch, which will help you in the short term, and if you want to go into Expanded, you could even use Blastoise here, although do remember that the general rule for multiple stage 2s is, if you're using multiple stage 2s, one of them better have a draw engine, because otherwise it's just not quite good enough. So the first attack is good, does a lot of damage, and even 60 for 1 is nice. But we've got some other attacks to use here as well. The second attack does 30 damage, and you switch yourself with a benched Pokemon. It's a hit and run attack. And we've seen plenty of hit and run attacks. In fact, if you want a Water GX with a hit and run attack, how about Tapu Fini? Tapu Fini for 1 water energy does 20 damage and flicks to the bench. This does an extra 10 damage. But it's for water energy and it's on a stage 2, which generally makes it not quite as good. The translation we have from Autobot Tesla at the moment says that you must switch with a bench, whereas with something like Tapu Fini, you may switch to the bench. And this is alright. If you want to finish off a Pokemon but not leave Kingdra in the active to take a hit next turn, this is quite nice. Or you could use it as a hit and run Pokemon, so you could flick to the bench and put up what I call a wall Pokemon. Something like Reshiram and Zekrom from Shining Legends, for instance, which can take a hit and then hit back more strongly using Outrage, or something like a Wobbuffet, where you do the damage and you flick to the bench and then you leave a Wobbuffet in the active, so your opponent no longer has access to their abilities. Or maybe a Glaceon, so that your opponent doesn't have access to their EX or GX abilities, etc. And of course, I have to mention here, as I always do with single energy attacks, Max Potion is very, very useful here, because you can do the damage, and then if your opponent doesn't one-hit KO you, and even though 230 is low for a Stage 2 GX, it's still high generally, so your opponent doesn't KO you, you use a Max Potion, heal off completely, ready to use again the next turn. It doesn't do that much damage. I mean, the gold standard for hit and run Pokemon in recent times has been Donphan from Plasma Storm. That really has been the best hit and run Pokemon we've had. But it did 40, and you had strong energy, and you had Fighting Stadium, and you had Muscle Band. So actually, you weren't hitting for 40, you were more likely hitting for kind of 80 to 100, and that made a huge, huge difference. I don't think this is a bad attack, but it's not an attack on which you're going to be relying. It is an alright attack, but it's one you use here and there. It's not one to build a deck around, which is fine because the first attack is that good. And then we get to the GX attack, and I'm a little ambivalent about this GX attack. It does 40 damage for 1 water energy to all of your opponent's Pokemon. Now, on the one hand, 42 each is very low. You're not going to be getting a turn 2 rare candy into a Kingdra and then dropping 60 on all of your opponent's Pokemon, KOing stuff like all of their Zorua, which would be amazing. For 60 here, this would be great. But then again, you always could combine it with a Flying Flip from Tapu Koko, and then it would do 20 to all of your opponent's Pokemon. The difference is your opponent will have a turn to evolve here, so you're not going to guarantee the KOs like you could if this just did a flat 60. But on the other hand, if your opponent's got a full bench, that's 240 damage going down. Some Pokemon might be KO'd, some Pokemon might just be brought into range. Buzzwole goes from 190 to 150, Gardevoir goes from 230 to 190. Oh look, now Gardevoir is in range of a free energy attack with a Choice Band, for instance. And this is where the attack really comes in handy. Although, as with any time you are spreading a bunch of damage around, don't forget about Tapu Lele from Ultra Prism that could be used for just a counter energy, which allows you to rearrange all the damage on your opponent's side of the field, so you can essentially put 240 damage down, assuming they've got a full bench, and then rearrange it later. It's not a stunning GX attack. It's not one that you're going to be desperate to use in every single game. But it is a GX attack that could win games. It could put some really valuable damage down on the field. It could be the difference in a KO and not a KO. It could take multiple KOs if you've already done a bunch of damage. It's not a bad GX attack by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a GX attack which is just a little bit underwhelming under some circumstances. Overall, the fact that it's a stage 2 hurts it, but the fact that it can attack for a single energy and abuse max potion really helps. The fact that our first attack adds up so quickly really helps, but we don't have great energy acceleration for water Pokemon after your Aqua Patch run out. So I'm giving Kingdra 4 Wassies. And I'm very unsure about this particular Kingdra. I don't think it's a bad card, but I don't think it's an amazing card because it's another one of those that takes just a little bit too much to get rolling. Although before we finish, I would like to mention Super Boost Energy here. If you can ever get free Kingdra or other stage 2 out, then Super Boost Energy will just be 4 water energy, which means you're hitting for 210, 240 with a choice band for what is essentially a single energy. So if you are playing Kingdra, play Super Boost Energy, and that one turn you do get it out, it is going to be absolutely wonderful. And I should very quickly mention Quagsire here as well. I'm not a huge fan of it. We're already using a stage 2 Kingdra. We don't really need a stage 1 Quagsire here. It does allow you to put your water energy from the bench to the active, but it doesn't get any more water energy. It means you can Aqua Patch onto it and then move it forward to a Kingdra in the active, but it doesn't get you more water energy, it just allows you to rearrange, and I don't think you're going to be teching in a stage 1 in a stage 2 deck, which is pretty much what I said in my Quagsire video. I'll pop a link in the description so you can check it out. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think. Loads of you have been commenting and messaging me lately, asking about Kingdra and what I think it does and if I think it's going to be good. The answer is, it's pretty good, but it's not amazing. It's going to see play, but it's not going to wreck the meta. Hence, 4 Wossie card. But I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me if you think it's going to see play. Tell me what it would partner with. Go nuts, but be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc., head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, which is where you can do that. And do check out my video game and Dragon Ball channel, Wossie Plays. New video went up yesterday. Check it out. I would be delighted. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.